afternoon. My name is Nicole Schmidt, and today I'm going to be talking to you about LIVESTRONG Sporting Park, which was done in Kansas City, Kansas, and completed in 2011. Here's a brief overview of what I'm going to talk to you today about. Basically, I'm going to give you a general project overview, then go on into the complexity dimensions as we've discussed, the tools utilized, and then wrap up with a conclusion and questions. So a general project overview. Turner Construction was the general contractor for the project. Populous was the architect. Thornton Tomasetti was the primary engineer. And then we had the ownership group at that time on goal, and that was headed up by 3 owner representatives for that for this project. We didn't break ground until January 20th, 2010, and it was several years in the works. Originally, the project was supposed to be located in Kansas City, Missouri, and then the owner got approached by Kansas City, Kansas to come on over to the other side and build a project there. It was a quick schedule to get completed by the date for their first home game for Sporting KC, which was June 9th, 2011. And this was key because Sporting KC had adjusted their schedule to have most of their away games early in the season and most of their home games later in the season. Basically, the construction cost amount was about $160 million, which is pretty sizable for an MLS soccer stadium. For the history of design, I'm going to go through on the next slide for you, but I wanted to mention the capacity that holds in the stadium is about 18,500 for the soccer games, 25,000 for concerts, and then we have some quick highlights that are kind of big highlights for the stadium. In the course of the term of excavation, we excavated over 240,000 cubic yards of earth. We also installed 150 miles of 40G fiber optic cable, which means everybody in the stadium can be on their iPhone or iPad, downloading information, uploading information, Facebooking, chatting, whatever it may be. We also were the first MLS stadium to be fully lit for HD TV. And we have over 150 Wi-Fi spots in the stadium area. So to touch on the history, when the ownership started looking at building a stadium, they didn't just say, hey, I want to build this. They actually toured stadiums throughout the United States, ones that were more modern and more finished and popular. They also went over to Europe and looked at the famous ones there, as well as the most modern and up-to-date stadiums as well. And as you can see, the stadium is supposed to be called in motion, so like a soccer ball. When you go to kick the ball, it gets in motion right away and whirls around. It starts here, goes around and over. This canopy covers all the seats, so everyone in the stadium stays dry when it rains. We also have fins located on the exterior sides that also give that in motion look to it. Going on to the field, we installed approximately $1 million field, which includes the natural turf grasses that were made in Colorado or grown in Colorado, and then it includes a sub-air system which provided the heating and cooling of the field, making the field usable throughout the year, which is great for soccer sports. As you can see here are some of the seats that spelled the name Sporting, and those came from Spain and Japan, and so there was some coordination with our overseas departments. And this canopy was a big part where a lot of coordination and technical reviews occurred between the steel and the metal panels that went over it. Moving on, this is the Cauldron Club during a soccer game, and it's full. It's where the big fans for Sporting KC sit, and their sound echoes throughout the whole stadium, also because of the design. As you can see, here's one of their big HD TVs that you would call for the stadium, and it was the most modern and up-to-date technology at the time the stadium was built. Lastly, I just wanted to touch on the exterior of the stadium. Reason being is because this you see here is only a portion of the exterior work that we had to do as far as site work. We didn't receive drawings for that until 1.5 months prior to that June 9th soccer game. So just imagine getting your drawings, having to vet it out, bid it out, getting everybody on board, and put the work in place. Kind of a big task at hand. Moving on, on to our complexity dimensions as we discussed in class, we'll first touch on the schedule. As you've seen, it's a quick, tight 16-month schedule, which means we were doing double shifts when we started, excavating, earth moving, foundations, drill piers, and we also were working long hours when it came close to that first game to make sure everything was done. And because we did that, we got high praise by the people that facility management group that covers the stadium. They said it was the best, most complete construction stadium project they had ever managed, which was a good compliment to us. That big milestone, that first game, we had to be done because there were thousands of people, standing room only, that were counting on us. Moving on to our cost control, the good thing is Turner was brought on early on for pre-construction. So we've been working with Populous and the owner to work on estimates from DD development through 25% CDs, 75% CDs, all the way through construction documents to go build off of. We had estimates to compare to, we had sub-input, we have logs to compare to, everything. We also had an owner contingency and a construction contingency, which we tracked, and we showed different PCO reports, COR reports, and contingency reports to the owner every week, and they themselves tracked all the changes and dollar values as well. Moving on to the technical piece, BIM played a key role for us here in this project, particularly in the precast portion, because we had precast stairs and things that went into the stadium. So we were working on that from the beginning. And little would you think, but once we had done all the precast class detections and made everything okay, there were only two minor things we had to take care of in the BIM model, which really helped out in the field. We also have a program we call CDOCS, which is basically anyone on the job site, project, subcontractor, owner, can go to this website and it has the drawing and it's updated with the RFI or a JSI or an ASI, whatever it may be, and that is included on that drawing when they go look at that drawing. One thing also technical about this project was the seats. The locker room seats here were made in Spain. And the nice part about them was they have an iPod docking station as well as an electrical outlet in there. That way the player can take their iPad, update their health information, and then spit it out to the shake machine area where each player had an individualized shake made before each game, so that way they were ready for the game to go. We also had Cisco systems provide a lot of the technical aspects like connections and fiber optics, and that was really cool to see because we have each suite and each club in different parts of the stadium are all remotely controlled through your iPad, and there's an iPad in each suite or club area. Moving on to the financing portion of the project, it was partially funded by bonds by Kansas City, Kansas. They had STAR bonds as well as TIF money involved, and then the owner funded the rest of the portion. So it was an evenly funded project, and there was no issue with funding. And we as Turner also get approval letters and financial records to back ourselves up knowing that. Going into the context part of the dimension, this was a very complex project with regards to that. Our contract with the owner tied to the contract with the city, which means we had to meet local requirements, DBE requirements, WBE, MBE. We were attending career fairs, hosting career fairs, calling and emailing subcontractors all around the city and state. We were also trying to get local workforce to come work for us as well for the self-perform work. We also encountered some global economics. As I mentioned, some of the seats were made in Spain. We also had portions of the stadium seats fabricated in Japan. And as you all know, there was a tsunami there in 2011. Fortunately, the boat with our stadium seat components got out before the tsunami hit, just in time, because if they didn't get out then, we would have been in a bind and trying to find out our seat armrests. Moving on to the tools we've used, this project used a lot of the tools we've discussed in class. Here are ones to highlight. I've discussed most of them, but we utilized BIM, We kept the design work to the budget. We also took any issues to the owner and worked hand in hand with the architect and engineers. There was an incentive because the June 9th date was earlier than the original completion date, so that was an incentive to Turner, as well as there were incentives to employees on the project too. We did do some off-site fabrication when it came to plumbing pipe and for like urinals and water closets. We also bid the work in sequence from that correlated with the schedule. One thing that's big with this part is we also awarded 2 different drywall subcontractors and masonry subcontractors the work due to the quick nature of this stadium. So one sub took from the concourse below and one sub took from the concourse above. And so that really helped with our manpower and making sure we were on time and on schedule. We also, with every project, we develop a comprehensive risk analysis. We look at all the risks, we make sure we have priorities, we have goals, we document them, we track them, and we catch them up to date. And then I've already discussed our public involvement and our international involvement. So in conclusion, we have a world-class stadium here, just in Kansas City. So it's a quick 3.5 to 4 hour drive for you in Ames. I highly recommend going to it if you get a chance. We also have a stadium with the most cutting-edge technology at the time that it was built. And that was key to the owner because they really wanted it to be quite the fan experience when you go there. We had a schedule crunch. As you can see, quick $160 million in 14 months for the size and location that the project was at. It's over $10 million in a month, so that's nice to think about and hard as well. We had the local workforce and the different requirements and percentages to meet. And then lastly, just to briefly touch on the methods we discussed in class, we did utilize all of them. We had success factors, or we call them goals, or risk management ideas that we had in place, and we had ways of tracking them and who was responsible. We also had, the team was assembled based on our operations manager and based on people that had stadium experience, had experience with the owner or the people dealing with the architect or engineers, and then we also had people that were just generally interested in stadium work. Then we have the project arrangements. That's from the bid packages to people doing what and what they're working on. And then we had our cost model, which we discussed the budgeting, pre-construction through completion. And then we had our action plans that we carried through the whole project, touched based on weekly, monthly, depending on what the action plan was. So at this time, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present to you on LiveStrong Sporting Park, and I'll take any questions on the blackboard. Thank you.